I think the cultural sensitivity when we're working internationally, which everyone is now.
Yeah.
The cultural sensitivity is really, really important.
How should you handle criticism and feedback? And how should you give criticism and feedback? This is an important skill in your professional life, but also in your personal life. And in this episode, I'm really excited because I'm speaking with Janeen, who is a specialist in business communication. And we're talking all about criticism and feedback. And something really interesting is a cultural difference between Americans and Australians in terms of feedback and criticism. We also talk about some French cultural differences. And of course, there's tons of idioms and expressions in this episode as well. So very excited to have you listen to our conversation about handling and giving feedback and criticism. Hey, Janeen, how are you doing today?
I'm really great, thanks. And
awesome.
You can see it's raining outside, which is actually really good because we need water.
You need water. Yeah, it's just hot here in Grenoble, but it's good. In about 30 minutes, the storm will break and it will pour down rain, which is always a good thing. Anyway, so here, let's see. In today's episode, we're talking all about handling criticism and feedback because this is something that is very useful for, I would say, any professional, like anyone who's working in a job and has to interact with other people, probably needs to know how to handle and to give criticism and feedback. I know that you are really good at this topic. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to get into it today. So I guess
I'll just interrupt there. It's actually really important to everybody in life.
That's true. This is true. Yeah.
In life, we're always giving feedback and often, we receive feedback and it's very easdy to get offended and go, oh, I can't handle that.
Exactly. Right. No, you're right. So yeah, even in your personal life, this stuff could very much be useful and practical and avoid a lot of tension and conflict. So, right. So I would say in maybe giving some criticism and feedback, what would be your number one tip on how to do that?
In giving feedback, my number one tip is be honest be open and honest with respect and empathy, which is my number one tip for communication always.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Feedback especially.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's, like you said, you want to be honest. You don't want to, to lie to the other person because that doesn't help anybody. But you really do have to maybe think about like how you deliver your message. Like you said, empathy. Think about the person who's listening to you. How is your message going to be perceived? How are they going to take it? I would say, deliver your message with like tact, respect, empathy, all those things you said. I think that's really important.
Yeah, tact is really important. And I mean, tact means being conscious of what we're saying, right, and making sure we're not saying something that the other person is likely to feel insulted by. So it's really important that we don't make any I'll give you another phrase, personal slights. So when you make a slight on someone, we put them down and insult them. Yeah. And we definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not, I feel like if the person is delivering their feedback and their criticism with tact and they're, respecting you, et cetera, then you shouldn't take it personally because like you said, they're not there to slight you, to insult you, to criticize you like for free, let's say, they're not there to be mean to you. So I would say like, you don't want to, don't be a snowflake. Don't think that the world is against you and you're, overly sensitive because someone says something and it's hard to take and all of that. I think there's an art to giving criticism and feedback, but then there's also an art to handling criticism and feedback.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important that we distinguish between criticism and critiquing, because often with our feedback, what we want to do is critique.
Right.
Rather than necessarily criticize.
Right. And so how would you make the difference between those two?
Okay, so when we're critiquing someone, or actually we're not critiquing someone, that's really important.
Right.
We are critiquing their behavior or their actions.
Right.
And so it's really important to distinguish that difference. And then when you critique, you're looking for what can be improved, and what can be done better,
right,
and how you can help them. Rather than criticize them is really quite negative, and it's just you're just focusing on the negative.
Right.
So I think if you go with the intent of, I'm giving you this feedback to help you do a better job, to help you do whatever it is you're doing better.
Right.
And it has a great, that's going to have a much better outcome.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I think we were talking about this before we started the recording, because, we had, a moment in our team, let's say, and I think this is a good example to show that, we're working as a team, which means a lot of things like team management, interpersonal communication, et cetera, but also is very interesting for the cultural difference part. And it was, when you said, I would say, you said Australians are very open and very direct, compared to us Americans, who are maybe much more indirect. And we like to really sugarcoat things, I would say.
That's a big difference. Australians are very much they're well known for say it how it is. We don't sugarcoat things. We just say it. Look, this is how it is. And Americans, I don't know, you tell me, but I got the impression that Americans can just get a little bit, let's say, offended by saying it how it is.
Exactly. And I would say it's because it's maybe I don't know, offended. Yeah, maybe. But I think it's just because in American culture, it's like if someone sort of just, like you said, tells you how it is and is very directly honest. I mean, we have an expression, brutally honest.
Yes.
It's not something that's really expected or done a lot in American culture. And so it can create a little bit of tension. And I almost feel like the Australian culture is much closer to the French culture in this way, than the American culture, even though we might tend to think of, the US and the UK and Australia, we lump them together as Anglo-Saxons, but I think there's a big cultural difference. And Australia is closer to maybe France and Germany and things like that in that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it, comes from the history of Australia, which has been a hard nose, a hard knock culture growing up as a country.
Yeah.
And this she'll be right, mate attitude.
Right. Yeah.
Let's just get in and get it done.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's when you, because, what we had to manage was you communicating, I would say in your natural Australian style. Of course, we've got a lot of Americans on the team, and we're like, all right, Janeen, you got to calm down a little bit, because some of the people are, taking it a little personally, perhaps, which was not your intention. But again, it just goes to show that in the culture, because you were, like you said, critiquing versus criticizing, the idea was critiquing and trying to point out and improve, et cetera. It wasn't like you were being mean or anything like that, but because of the cultural difference, it was all right, let's address this. And after, I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to talk to Janeen about this. And I was really nervous about it. And then because how to take criticism and feedback, you're like, oh, I didn't realize it. Okay, I've noted, not at all my intention. And we worked it out very smoothly. But I think that was a very interesting conversation, because it was how to give criticism and feedback, how to accept it, and also how to manage cultural differences around this topic, which can be quite sensitive in a lot of, moments, let's say.
Yeah. I think the cultural sensitivity, when we're working internationally, which everyone is now.
Yeah.
The cultural sensitivity is really, really important. And I can give you one example about the French-Australian project for the submarines, the one that the Australian Prime Minister cancelled.
Right.
So, there you go. Someone not being
diplomatic incident.
Sensitive, yes. But they wrote the issues between the culture, and the French people said the Australians just have to recognize that we need 2 hours for lunch, and this is very important in our culture.
Right.
And Australians, we eat at our desk,
right?
Or we might be lucky if we take half an hour. So Australians didn't understand that, and the Australians to the French, well, the French need to recognize that when we say a time for a meeting, we mean we start at that time, not 10 minutes, 15 minutes later.
Right. Exactly.
And so these sort of things, really, we need to be aware of them.
Exactly. And then, like you said, there can be differences, and you can address those differences. And then what you have to do is sort of, meet in the middle, decide on what's going to work for you as a team, and not say like, no, we're French, you must adapt to us, or we're Australians and you must adapt to us, and say, all right, we're clearly have different approaches here. Let's see what we can both be happy with. And I think I would say maybe as a conclusion to all of that, the idea is when you have situations where you have to handle, I would say to give or to get criticism and feedback, look for the positive sides and look how you can use those opportunities to improve and grow together. Because that's what it's about. It's about becoming better together and improving. And
I like that.
That's it.
Becoming better together.
Become better together. Words of wisdom. I think we'll end on those final words. Become better together. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Janeen. And talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Christina.